You know, it's funny. Sometimes the biggest, most life-changing messages are hidden in the tiniest little details. Today, we're going to dig into that. We're going to uncover the massive meaning behind just two simple words in a 2,000-year-old text, a message of hope that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Okay, so check this out. On the screen, we've got two passages describing the exact same event. It's an angel's message right after the resurrection. On the right, Matthew's version is pretty straightforward. Tell his disciples. But look at Mark's version on the left. He adds two little words that change everything. Tell his disciples and Peter.
I mean, at first glance, it feels like such a tiny difference, right? Why do that? Why single out just one person? It could have been John, the one Jesus was so close to, or even Thomas, who was having his doubts. So why this specific, intentional mention of Peter? Well, that question, that's the key to this whole thing.
See, to really get why those two words pack such a punch, we first have to understand the man they were meant for. We got to rewind the clock just a couple of days and see the absolutely crushing failure that had completely shattered Peter's world.
This was Peter right before it all fell apart. He's bold, he's confident, he is 100% certain of his own loyalty. He looks Jesus in the eye and promises that even if every single other person bails, he never will. It's a heck of a vow, but it was about to be completely broken.
And wow, did it unravel fast. Right after that big, bold promise, Jesus gets arrested. Peter's in the courtyard, and he gets confronted. First, by a servant girl. He denies knowing Jesus. Then someone else asks. He denies it again. The third time? He doesn't just deny it. He starts swearing and cursing. And in that exact moment, the rooster crows, and his whole world just implodes. Can you just imagine the weight of that moment? The shame? Let's really try to step into Peter's shoes for a second and feel the despair he must have been drowning in. He wasn't just some guy who got scared and ran away. He was the one who publicly, shamefully, denied even knowing his Lord. You can almost hear the thoughts racing through his head, right? I've fallen. This wasn't some tiny little slip-up. This was a deep, profound betrayal. He must have felt like a line had been crossed, like a massive canyon had just opened up between him and Jesus that could never, ever be bridged. And you want to know the most painful part? The absolute kicker? This wasn't some anonymous failure in the dark. The scripture says that right as Peter denied Jesus that third time, Jesus turned and looked straight at him. Just imagine that. That one look must have burned right into his soul. There was no hiding from it.
So, in his own mind, that was it. Peter had disqualified himself. Game over. He had broken the one fundamental rule of being a disciple, to follow. As far as he was concerned, he wasn't a disciple anymore. He was out. The story for him was finished.
But the story wasn't over, not even close. And this is what brings us right back to those two little words. Now that we have the weight of all that failure, all that despair in our minds, let's look again at the angel's message at that empty tomb. And here it is. This is the answer. And Peter isn't just a casual addition. It's a targeted, personal, intentional message. It's like a signal flare from heaven, sent directly to the one man hiding in the shadows of his own shame. It's saying, go tell the group and also make sure you find the one who thinks he's not part of the group anymore. It's the entire gospel of forgiveness packed into two words.
I mean, just think about how intentional this is. The message didn't single out John, the disciple Jesus loved. It didn't single out Thomas, the one with all the questions. No, it singled out the biggest, most public failure of the bunch, the one who needed to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he was still wanted.
Think about it. If the angel had only said, go tell the disciples, what would Peter have thought? He would have heard that and immediately assumed it wasn't for him. He'd think, well, that's for them, not for me. I'm not a disciple anymore. But that little phrase, and Peter, that was a personal lifeline thrown directly to a drowning man. It was an unmistakable command for him to come home. But hold on, there's one more fascinating layer to this whole thing. While Matthew, Luke, and John all tell this story, only Mark includes these two specific words. Why? Was it just some random detail he remembered? Nope. The answer is way more personal than that. And it's all about who was really behind the Gospel of Mark.
Get this, early church history is really clear that the Gospel of Mark is basically Peter's account of everything, just written down by his buddy Mark. So when it came time for Peter to tell his story, you better believe he made sure those two words were in there. To anyone else, they might have seemed insignificant, but to the man whose life was literally saved by them, They were absolutely unforgettable.
Okay, so why does a 2,000-year-old story about 2 words really matter to any of us right here, right now? Well, it's because the principle behind "and Peter" is completely timeless. It builds into a message that's for every single one of us. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like Peter? Have you ever had a moment of failure so big, so profound, that you felt totally disqualified? A moment where you thought, that's it. There is no coming back from this one. A moment you felt you were no longer worthy of anything?
The whole point of this story, the big takeaway, is that "and Peter" also means "and you." It's a message for the person who has failed. It's for the person hiding in shame. It's a specific, personal invitation back home for anyone who feels like they have permanently disqualified themselves.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? We have this tendency to just stay fixated on our failures, replaying them in our minds long after we've been forgiven. But this story shows us a God who is way, way more interested in our restoration than he is in our past mistakes.
You know, grace isn't some kind of reward for good behavior. It's a lifeline for people who know they're drowning. The message of "and Peter" is that the invitation is extended precisely to those of us who feel without a single doubt that we don't deserve it.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. What if that very feeling of being disqualified, that shame that makes you want to go hide, what if that's actually what makes you the perfect candidate for this message? What if, in your absolute lowest moment, there's a message being sent out that says, go tell the others, and you